Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Let's start our video with a story, the essence of which is that living well is the best revenge. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Uncle in World War II started as a private, became captain, got revenge on jerk sergeant. Lead up. My uncle enlisted at the beginning of World War II, just like his two brothers and all his friends. He was sent to Europe after training and saw a lot of action. As a private, he had a very nasty sergeant that picked on him a lot, even though he was a year older than the sergeant. It could have been because my uncle was a staunch practicing Mormon. He didn't smoke, drink, or chase women. The sergeant gave him all the crap details, dressed him down, and held up promotions. In one combat action, my uncle personally captured a German colonel and his entire headquarters staff. He brought home the colonel's full dress uniform, pistol, ceremonial dagger, and even the boots. Because of this action, my uncle was sent back to the States to attend officers' candidate school. The sergeant tried to stop that, but couldn't. It was too big a deal. The revenge. Uncle returns to Europe and does well, rapidly advances from second lieutenant to captain, and is given a new company. In the new company is the nasty old sergeant who's still a three-striper. When he found out who the new CO was, he about crapped a brick. Uncle had called him to his HQ and had him sit outside his office for 6 hours, then sent his aide out to give him his transfer papers. Uncle walked out of his office past the sergeant and doesn't say a word to him, doesn't look at him, or even break his stride as he walked past. I asked my uncle why he never got back at the sergeant. Uncle said he did. He became an officer and went on to live a fantastic life full of adventure, love, and excitement. The sergeant was always just a POS. And our second story. Giving my boss his rightful due. So about 7 or 8 months ago, I worked for a private contractor, mostly just grunt work, carry this, destroy that, etc. Well, on this occasion, I had to install a vapor barrier and installation in a crawl space, the tight dirt floor space with lots of pipes that's under your house. So I put my cheap crawl space suit on that's already ripping as I kneel down to soldier crawl under the house. I grab a flashlight and the rolls of plastic sheets. I'm rolling the vapor barrier out and staking it down as I go. As I'm pushing the stake into the dirt, I feel something run across my hand. I just about Kool-Aid Manned right through the floor above me, but of course I didn't. I grabbed my flashlight and started looking around, and in between just about every floor joist, I can see dozens, if not hundreds of eyes reflecting light back at me. I look directly above my head, and there's like 3 tablespoon-sized spiders staring right into my soul. I suppress the second wave of panic and try to calmly make my way out of the crawl space, and I can't help but notice every pair of eyes on me as I'm leaving. After my successful noping out, I called my boss and told him what was up. He told me something along the lines of, "They're more scared of you. You're like 1,000 times their size." And after a good 5 minutes of calling me the P word, he says, "The faster you get it done, the faster you can get out." So I, the naive young'un I was, decided he was right, and what could they possibly do to me? I laugh at that now. Anyway, I'm sure you can see where this is going. I managed to get the vapor barrier down without a problem, other than the permanent and immense feeling of dread and impending doom. But as I was stuffing the insulation between the floor joists where the critters were hanging out, I felt a blunt sting on the back of my hand. I immediately knew what it was. I crawled out again, called my boss again, and after another 5-minute phone call, I headed back in again. Also on the phone call, he told me I had to head to another house and prep the living room to be painted. Then I could go home. I was back inside the crawl space, absolutely hating my career choice at the moment, but I finished the crawl space, drove 10 minutes, and prepped the living room. I drove the work van back to his house, got in my car, and decided I was too tired to sit in a waiting room for hours on end. I know how stupid that was, but went home, showered vigorously, and went to bed. When I woke up in the morning, my hand was a little swollen, but nothing to be concerned about. I went to work and got sent a house in the middle of nowhere to load a 6x6 post into a trailer to be used at another job site. Almost as soon as I started to work and sweat, my hand started to ache, then burn. Then eventually, blissfully, went numb. I didn't bother calling my boss, I just texted him, "I need to go to the hospital." I got a call about 20 minutes later as I'm pulling my car out of his driveway. I'll save you his 35-minute tangent. In conclusion, he said, "If you're not feeling well, then don't come in. Because right now you're wasting my time and I'm not paying you for an hour and 15 minutes worth of work. Be at my house tomorrow, 6 a.m., ready to work the whole day." And that, folks, was effing it. I called off the next 3 days due to my hand. I could have worked after the first day I left early. The antibiotics and ointment the doctors prescribed was working wonderfully. But why should I have if I wasn't feeling 100%? Anyway, I started looking for a job the same day I left the hospital. After that, I called out for everything from back pain to a effing hangnail. I only lasted a month and a half after this, but in that month, I called off at least 15 times. The only notice being a text message that he would see when he first wakes up. Normally, it wouldn't have been a big deal having one employee calling out ritualistically, but I was the only person working for him at the time who could or would drive the van that had all of his tools and equipment in it. So the days I called out, he had to leave his shiny black diesel-lifted Ford F-250 at home and would have to drive the work van. Honestly, I was trying to get fired at that point, and I love saying, "Sorry, boss, I just didn't want to waste your time." A few things I should mention. The job was under the table, and that's why I didn't get fired immediately for attendance and why my boss was able to not just pay me. After looking at a few different spiders on the internet, I think the ones in the crawl space were wolf spiders. I'm not positive, but they look pretty similar. Oh, and just in case it wasn't clear, there must have been upwards of 200 spiders in the crawl space. I wasn't much of an arachnophobe beforehand, but after that, I can't even think about a spider without getting chills and what I can only describe as a war flashback. Fun fact about the camel spiders you ran across in Iraq, a lot of the people had no idea about them and would freak out when they ran after you. What they didn't realize is that they don't chase you to bite, they want the shade from our shadows. Damn hilarious. And our third story. You want it hot? I'll make it hot. Many moons ago, I was a chef at a Mexican restaurant in a small country town in Australia. One night, a young man entered the restaurant with a young lady and asked for a table for two. My waiting staff seated them and when they were ready, asked for their order. Keep in mind that the staff had all been there forever and also knew all the regulars. The young man ordered the steak Veracruz, a steak served with tomato-based sauce and chili in it, then asked for it to be made hot. He went on to say that he came here all the time and always asked for it hot, and we never made it hot enough for him. In fact, no restaurant has ever made food hot enough for him. The young lady ordered a mild nachos. He was being quite obnoxious, telling the young lady about how terrible the restaurant was about getting the food to the correct level of heat that he required of his Mexican food. It also became obvious from his conversation that they were out on a first date. The staff and I had never seen him before. In fact, we wondered if we kept getting his food so wrong, as he said, why did he keep coming back? We then decided to do exactly what he asked for. You want it hot? You're gonna get it hot. I fired up the frying pan. Now, keep in mind that in small-town Oz back in the day, we had never heard of anything as exotic as ghost chilies or the like. All I had to work with was chili powder, fresh red and green jalapeno chilies, and Tabasco sauce. Into that pan went some oil and onions to sweat, and then I added about half a dozen finely chopped chilies, seeds and all, and about a tablespoon or so of chili powder. At this point, the air near the frying pan became rather hard to breathe, and I had to retreat for some fresh air to the kitchen door. I came back and took a whiff and realized a bit more chili powder was needed. I then added the tomato sauce base, some chopped capsicum, and let that simmer down for a few minutes. Into that went a good couple of tablespoons of Tabasco. The steak that I'd fried off then went into the pan to soak up all that chili goodness. By this time, the steam in the kitchen was making everyone's eyes water and causing uncontrollable coughing, so I figured it was time to serve it. On to the bed of rice it went, and out went the order. The entire staff then stood by the kitchen door to watch the fun. The young man took his first bite, and I swear you saw the instant the chili hit, his face went red and broke out in a sweat. All that chili goodness had put a stranglehold on his throat. We watched as he slowly ate his meal while consuming vast quantities of water to try and ease the burn. I'll at this point give that man some credit. He was determined to show off in front of his date, and he ate the entire steak. The suffering was joy to watch, though. When the ordeal was over and the plates were removed, he was asked what he thought of the meal. He told us it wasn't hot enough. I should add that the young lady became a regular customer and told us he'd been an insufferable idiot who could only talk about himself. She too had enjoyed watching the ordeal. And our next story. Russian revenge. Preface: I read this on a Russian forum and I'm translating it here. For a bit of context, the Russian military has special days for different branches of service where veterans of those branches get crap-faced and act like idiots. There are Border Guards Day, Tanker Day, Paratrooper Day, and a few others. Here's the actual story. Once upon a time, on August 2nd, a sad story took place in our town. 3 drunken paratroopers ganged up on a middle-aged Azerbaijani man and called him slurs and beat him up. The paratroopers made a mistake. Timur Sultanovich isn't a racist slur, but a well-respected and well-connected man. He's well-respected enough and well-connected enough to have the 3 culprits licking his shoes clean the next day. But Uncle Timur, as everyone calls him, is a kind man. They'll punish themselves, he said. All it took is a few meetings, some phone calls, and a bit of money, relatively, and next year. Next year, on August 1st, a brand new vodka was delivered to all the stores in town. It was called Paratrooper. It was very cheap and had a label with an image of a paratrooper smashing a bottle over his head, as is tradition. You've seen the YouTubes. The next day, over 200 idiots were hospitalized on Paratrooper Day, some with concussions, some with cranial trauma and fractures from trying to break the bottle over their heads. The bottles were made of thick, tempered glass. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.